We're just getting ready. We're live streaming this meeting on YouTube, and we're admitting a few more people. I think it's happening.
I think we're almost there. I think we are looking for another panelist.
They're coming in like
So
droves, Julia.
hopefully we're
I'm hitting the admit button as fast as I can. We're
excellent.
42 people here for this amazing program. Julia, I am so thrilled that you've launched this three-part series and can't wait to see what we're going to learn together.
Me too. I am very excited to have this opportunity to think about and explore what librarians are doing on YouTube. It's looking like a lot of different things. And this is just our kickoff conversation to start thinking about what that looks like. And some logistics before we jump in. Again, my name is Julia Farrar, and I am your host for today. I am head of digital literacy initiatives at the University Libraries at Virginia Tech. I'm also an affiliated faculty member with the Media Education Lab and recently started my own YouTube channel with my husband, Trevor. So I am especially looking forward to learning from our great panel today. And Renee mentioned that we are recording. And we welcome your questions, thoughts, and chat throughout our time today. We will also have some time for you to unmute. We're going to kick off with some questions from me for our panel. We will then have some breakout discussions and a chance for you to connect with each other, some debrief from that, and then some opportunities for you to ask questions to our panelists as well. And I did want to mention, unfortunately, one of our panelists, Karina, or Q the Librarian, was not able to join us today, but I'm going to quick share my screen so that you can see her channel. I hope you'll check it out after or later today.
I believe that her campus has her testing. Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, no problem.
Karina and I are besties, so I don't think she would mind me telling y'all. I think either she is teaching or her campus has her testing, but she is amazing. If y'all don't follow her, please go subscribe to her channel, give her a follow on Instagram. She is awesome. She shares everything that's going on in her library. She has all kinds of really cool tips and tricks, all kinds of amazing programming that she shares. And her YouTube channel is just as awesome, if not more awesome, than mine.
And you are both collaborators, so we'll get to hear a little bit about her work as well through you, which is awesome. So I think with that, why don't we have you introduce yourself, Stephanie, and I'll have your channel up here in the background to give folks a little sense of who you are,
Sure.
As much as you want to share about your personal and professional background coming into this conversation.
Of course. Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Stephanie Galawan Russell. I am the Lispy librarian on all forms of social media. My background is in K-12 education. I started my education journey as a second grade teacher in Bryan, Texas. I taught there for 2 years. I also did a semester as an English or ELA pull-out program specialist in K through 2. And then after that, I moved to be a 6th grade math teacher, which everyone thinks is weird when you hear that you went from being a math teacher to a librarian. And yeah, it's weird because most librarians were ELA teachers. But yeah, so I taught 6th grade math, and then I was a really weird teacher that never planned on leaving the classroom. I've just always loved teaching. My mom will tell everybody that since I was 3 years old, I would sit down anybody or my stuffed animals or my dog and sit there and teach to them. So I never planned on leaving the classroom. I just wanted a master's degree, and I've always been a nerd. So got my degree in library science, and then a library position opened up in my district, and our library coordinator knew of me. She knew that I had just gotten my master's. She loved me. And so she said, hey, would you mind interviewing for it? And if you love it, you love it. And if you don't, you can go back to teaching math. And I said, all right, let's try it. And so I was a 9th grade media specialist at a campus with 1,500 freshmen all the time. It was super fun. and then got married and moved to Austin with my husband, where I was a high school librarian in Leander, and then kind of found that while high school was cool, middle school is the best. So I found a middle school library. Yeah, and I was a middle school librarian for 2 years, and then COVID happened. And so just like when I was teaching, I thought I would be in a library until I died or retired, whatever came first. And then COVID happened, and I took a job as an educational technology specialist. And now I am an innovative learning specialist with, excuse me, specialist, where I am a combo of all of my favorite worlds. I am a tech coach, I am a teacher coach, I am an instructional coach, and I get to do all the cool parts of being in a library, but not in a library. So I get to work with all the teachers in a district. And I started my YouTube channel as in my first year as a librarian, originally as just a space to be where I house book talks.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. And I think we had a little time zone challenge. So we've got Peter joining us as well. Thank you for being here. Peter, we are just doing introductions. If you could jump in and give us a little sense of who you are, your personal professional background.
Sure. So my name is Peter Musser. I am a librarian up in Vancouver, BC in Canada. And before that, I used to be an intelligence analyst for the US Navy. When I was doing my master's, I did too many things all at once, but it was really fun. And one of them was I started this channel, Stacks and Facts. And then before grad school, and the thing that got me to go to grad school was I did some independent research after getting out of the Navy and starting grad school, looking at the educational landscape on YouTube. So I traveled around North America and Europe, talking to folks who made educational content for free, like high quality stuff, just to see like how they did it, why they did it, and what kind of support they could use.
Excellent. Thank you. We'll stop my share. So you've started to both give us a sense of how you got started. I wondered if we could elaborate on that a little bit in terms of what that process looked for you. Why did you decide to start a YouTube channel? How did that go in the beginning? So Stephanie, if we could start with you again. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry. You're on mute is like the hashtag for 2020 and 2021. So I started my master's in library science at Sam Houston State University in Texas. And my master's is specifically in school librarianship. And so we had a class that was on YA literature, and it was amazing. And one of the big assignments for the class was to start a blog where you reviewed books. And I wanted to continue that once I finished my degree, but I didn't want it to be this boring, like assignment looking thing. And what I found was I hate blogging. I hate the typing part of it. So to me, it feels like you're writing an essay. And I thought, I have so much more fun talking and book talking and sharing books that I love with people. So the easiest way for me to do that would be on video. And vlogging was just becoming a huge deal. I follow a lot of weightlifters. I follow a lot of fitness people. And so there's all kinds of vlogs for that, but there weren't very many vlogs for librarians. And so I saw this gap and thought, why aren't there librarians on booktube? Or that's what we call it on YouTube, booktube. So there's lots of kids, there's lots of book bloggers, but there's no real librarians that are doing work in schools. And so I originally started as just a place to house all my book talks, to leave book reviews, and just kind of books that I love and wanted to share. But then it became so much more as my audience expanded, asking like, hey, what kind of library would you put this in? Would this be okay for my middle school library? Would this be okay for my high school library? And so it's grown to being just book talks, to being book reviews, how they would fit in libraries, technology tips and tricks, all kinds of things. And it has just grown so much, and it's so exciting to have.
That's awesome. I love what you said about sort of the shift from writing to video, freeing you up to think about your creative process in a different way. That's awesome. Peter, how about you?
Yeah, so basically what happened was I got really tired of answering the question of, oh, what's library and information science? Because like, I had just started grad school a little bit sooner or a little bit before. I started in 2016. And because I was on YouTube a lot already, I had a channel that I did before, I kind of knew what it was like to edit videos. And I realized the power of making a video to not answer a question over and over again. But also I saw it as a way of actually really understanding for myself what is library and information science. And so that was the first video that I ended up doing because my friend Lindsay kept pushing me. She was like, Peter, I think it's great that you're a librarian in training. I don't know what that means though. Like I know you like reading probably, but beyond that. And so I spent a week really just doing a deep dive into library science, information science, what they mean together versus apart, thinking about what I had studied during those first like 4 classes. And then I sat down and I wrote a script. And this is probably one place where Stephanie and I are a little bit different. I love writing. I love it so much because, so I have ADHD. And so my brain is always going 1,000 miles an hour. And so if I can bring myself to sit down and type something out, it gives me a chance to really evaluate what I'm trying to get across and get it across a little bit more succinctly. And so as a side effect of that, almost all of the videos on Stacks and Facts are scripted. And it also gives me a chance to make sure that I go back and research everything that I'm saying, because when I was talking to and really researching YouTube EDU is what we call it, everyone has a really big sense of duty to the folks who are viewing their content to make sure that what they're saying is right. And especially, I think around 2018, 2017, YouTube got rid of a thing called annotations, where if you got something wrong, you could just go and put in a little thing that covers up part of the screen that says, oops, I got it wrong, actually. And so when that went away, the impetus to really be thorough and make sure that you're as right as you can be was strong. And that's, I made a video and people started saying, hey, this is great. And so I kept making more videos. And then one of the reasons that I was able to keep doing it was that a grant came out that said, if you make videos consistently, at least 2 videos a month for 6 months, we'll put you in the pot for like $500. And it wasn't a lot of money, but it was helpful when I was getting started and trying to balance everything. So yeah.
Excellent. I think it's super interesting that you're both talking about seeing some kind of need or some kind of gap to fill. And also, I'm hearing you starting to talk a little bit about communities that you were wanting to join. Stephanie, you with BookTube, or thinking about other kinds of creators on YouTube that you're replicating. And Peter, you with YouTube EDU and sort of the educational community. I'd love to dig into community and audience a little bit more. I'm curious about who you're trying to connect with and who you're trying to speak to, and what you've learned about those groups over time. Why don't we start with you, Peter, this time?
Yeah, so when I first started making the channel, my goal was I wanted to make library propaganda. Unlike a lot of folks who are in librarianship now, I didn't realize that librarianship was something that really appealed to me until I was actually in grad school. So I went to grad school specifically to learn more around how information works and how people go and find information and the obstacles to that. But then after the core 4 courses that I did, I was like, oh, maybe libraries have a role to play in this whole helping people get access to education when they otherwise don't have the means. But at the time I was thinking more along the lines of getting into academic librarianship, and I still kind of am. I work at a public library. Probably already said that, I forgot. And so my goal was to make library propaganda to help other people have that aha moment of like, oh, wow, yeah, libraries have this potential. But the intended audience and the audience I ended up with ended up being different. Because like Stephanie was saying, there's a lack of librarians on YouTube, and there's some really great ones. I just want to give a shout out to Bookish Realm, who's also a booktuber, a Black woman who makes great content. But I didn't see those before. And so because there's that lack of content there, like I ended up becoming a place for librarians to go, to ask questions about the profession. and see what it's like. And so over time, I've kind of changed that from making explicitly like libraries are great, although I do every now and then do that, to here's what you should know. Like my experience as a librarian, or my experience going through LIS, through the iSchool library school. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Stephanie, how about you? What does audience and community look like for you?
So my audience is mainly other school librarians, but what I've found is other school librarians share my channel with their students. And then of course, parents watch those videos that students are watching, or they listen to them. And so my audience has grown from being what I intended it to be to so much bigger than I ever imagined. I was at a TCEA, excuse me, 2 years ago, and a librarian came running up to me. I had no idea who this crazy woman was. Now I do, we're good friends. But she was like, "Oh my God, you're Lispy librarian. My students love you." And I was like, what? That's weird. I had never heard someone tell me that their students were watching me. And so their students were watching me initially to find books that they wanted, or to kind of gauge if it was a book they were interested in or not. And what I've learned with that community is that when I'm making my videos is how I can be more intentional with them. So I start my video every time with thinking about how can this fit in a librarian world? You know, is this going to fit in a middle school library, an elementary library? Would it be appropriate in a high school library? You know, public libraries have so much more kind of reign over their spaces that they could have anything that fits in all three. But as a school librarian, we have to be very mindful of what space we're putting certain topics in. And so being able to be that person that guides librarians to figure that out without having to do, you know, looking at all these different reviews, thinking about parent feedback, thinking about what pushback can we get from a book. It's so, if it helps them get a little bit easier or get more work done, then it's amazing for me. And it's been so cool to see, because what started as me handing out like little Avery labels at Texas Library Association convention, I think like 4 years ago, I was handing out these little labels that just had at Lispy Librarian written on them, and just handing them out in line saying, "Hey, if you like book reviews, follow my YouTube." And now like I have actual stickers, and it's been so much fun to see people really embrace how they use my channel. So I love hearing how those different audience members that I never thought I would have before have taken my channel and used it for different things.
I love that. I love hearing about that progression over time for both of you and some of the unexpected audiences. And I think that's a really interesting part of YouTube, is that you can have very particular people in mind, but who knows where it's going to go and expand and who else can access. That's great. So that makes me think about maybe how your creative process keeps that audience in mind, and how really generally how you go about making the stuff that you do and what your process looks like. Stephanie, can we stick with you for this one?
Sure. I was really enjoying hearing how Peter scripts out his videos, because I am what's called a pantser. If anyone is familiar with NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month in November, there's two types of writers. There's pantsers and there's planners. And I am a pantser. I just start talking and hope for the best. In doing that, I end up having to do a lot of takes. And what I tell myself is I give myself 3 takes. The first one can be just crap. It's terrible. The second one I make better, and the third one has to be the best, because I'm not recording more than 3, just because I think if you do more than that, you're just going to start nitpicking yourself. Pantsing gives Trevor anxiety. It's helped me to really rein in on my my speaking abilities, and thinking about what I'm going to say as I'm saying it keeps me on my toes. I do like to say that I have kind of like an outline on like a sticky note, and it's like main character's name, quick plot, and like happy ending, bad ending, because I never want to give a spoiler. But I don't like to plan too much, just because I think as I'm making the video, it becomes what it is. I do plan, though, the actual tile that you put on the YouTube video up front. I make those in Google Slides, and that's kind of where I do a lot of my planning and thinking, like, how is this slide going to fit the video? And so I make sure I choose a color or a Bitmoji. Sorry, I spilled my coffee. That fits my that fits the book that I'm talking. So I'm a pantser, and I would love to learn more about how you actually get that script down.
Yeah, go for it, Peter.
Yeah, great question.
Let's hear about that scripting.
Yeah, so I since I started the channel, almost every video I've started with is it all starts with a question. And it's 100% true. Like when I decide to write a script, it's because like I don't know something, or I think there's something that other people want to know. And from there, I just kind of go. And sometimes it starts with an outline, because usually I have a general idea of kind of what I want to talk about. So for example, my most favorite video that I've done in my life, and probably forever, I just watched it this morning and I got teary-eyed because it's so good, in my opinion, to me, is about how tattoos can be part of the human record, and how we've seen that play out throughout history in different cultural and historical contexts. And a lot of the impetus for that video, second time I've used that word today, I'm feeling very highfalutin, is I got a tattoo. And I wanted to understand like the history of the tattoo before just going and putting something on my body. And it was really fascinating. And the way that that script worked out is I went and I shot a bunch of footage of me getting the tattoo. And then I went and I did a deep dive on what research I could find about tattoos. And of course, I had like the basic knowledge of things like the Holocaust, where Jews and other folks who were interned in camps had to get numbers tattooed on them. And from that deep dive, I understood, like I learned like, well, tattoos actually go way, way back, like 7,000-8,000 years ago, all over the world. But in certain cultures, like in Micronesia, Polynesia, and Melanesia, tattoos have a very significant cultural role, to a degree that we don't really see anywhere else. And so, you know, from all of that, I make a little outline. I talk about Mr. Rogers because there are rumors about Mr. Rogers, and also that's the significance of my tattoo. And then I just start writing. And because I have a bit more experience with writing, I'm kind of used to writing in a certain flow where like one paragraph flows to the next, keeping in mind that at the very end, you have to have a conclusion that kind of wraps things up, and then just try and knit things together in ways that they are relatable. So that's how that works. And then for Claire, it's the Mr. Rogers trolley. Yeah, because I think Mr. Rogers was a really cool dude. And I think that he shows a really great example of what masculinity can be in a healthy way, and the value of feelings, and honesty and all that jazz. But I cheat when I write my scripts. I have a teleprompter. It's right over there. And I had tried just printing out scripts and reading it that way. And that was very difficult because I just don't have the capacity to remember the really fancy sentences that I make myself say. So the flip side is I've gotten a lot of practice with teleprompters. And so I'm fairly good at reading off of them, but it does take practice. As for the question, in terms of the software I use, it is called Autoprompter. I have it on my iPad, but I couldn't tell you where my iPad is because I think I threw it off my bed so my room would look cleaner. But it's somewhere, something like that. There's a bunch out there though. You can download them for iPads or even smartphones. So
yeah,
that is so cool.
Great tip.
Thank you.
And I love the
Peter,
tattoo.
Peter, I have to tell you, I just subscribed to you and I'm in awe of your 7,000 subscribers. That is amazing. Congratulations.
Well, to what you said, Stephanie, you were talking about how you spend a lot of time planning your thumbnails, the little cards. And they say that that is a super important thing to do. And like it's super on brand for librarians, right? Because, you know, it's metadata. But YouTube has shown through various studies and A/B testing that when you have a good thumbnail, people are more likely to click on your videos. I am a schmuck, and so I don't really put a ton of planning into my thumbnails aside from I should get the one where I look the least awkward and put really big legible words on it. And that works for me. But I think the reason that my audience has gotten so big is because like there's a dearth of information on how to become a librarian on the internet,
Yeah.
or like what the process is like. Yeah.
Yeah, it feels, as I'm hearing both of you talk, it feels like some decision points about where you spend the time and sort of trade-offs with the preparation versus taking multiple takes later and just kind of figuring out what combination works for you.
That's actually another thing. 100% 3 takes as well. I've actually recorded videos 3 times. And it's such a pain because if you like, there's a saying like perfection is the enemy of something. 100%. You really got to cut yourself off.
Hey, Julia, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So I'm really curious about how you guys navigate the delicate balance between being informative, being entertaining, and being persuasive. Could you say more about that?
I saw that question in the chat and I thought it was awesome. I think that would be I'm in an online doctoral program right now and trying to like narrow down what I want my research to be. So I think that would be such a cool research topic. But if it's okay, I can go ahead and answer first. I originally started my channel as pure entertainment. I thought I was giving, a space just to review books, to kind of be silly. And what I found is I can be silly and have fun and talk with my hands and like embrace my speech impediment and show how librarians are actual humans. Like we're not the little lady with glasses and buns, and like be entertaining while I'm delivering that information. And I think Peter does the same. I'm looking at his channel and it looks so much fun. Like it feels like I could watch your channel, like it would be a show on Discovery Channel and I would love it. But also making sure that, like he said, you're giving the correct information out. So I feel like while you're giving that information, making sure it's correct, you can still be that silly person. Let your personality shine through how you're speaking, how you're moving your body. Are you making eye contact with your audience, which is, your camera, but still they can see you. And I think when you're showing your genuine self and being, just who you are, it makes the information you're delivering a lot more engaging.
Yeah. Yes. What Stephanie said. Also, I think it's like, because I spent as much time on YouTube, like an unhealthy amount, I know that sometimes like you don't have to be entertaining to make a good channel. Like you just have to talk about interesting stuff. Like my friend Lindsay, I mentioned her before. Her name's Lindsay Doe. She has a YouTube channel called Sexplanations with like just shy of 1 million subscribers, and she does sex education. And she has a doctorate in health and human performance. And for her, while entertainment is kind of, it's a thing she thinks about, what she's more concerned with is answering questions that people have and getting information out there to help people make good decisions. And I think like when you're on YouTube, it really helps to keep in mind, or even when you're not on YouTube, that people have questions. And if you have a question, someone else probably does too. And if you can answer that question in a way that doesn't necessarily put people to sleep, or even sometimes where it does put people to sleep, people will pay attention. A thing that a lot of people maybe don't think about too much is on the back end of YouTube, there is a very, very robust set of analytic tools, which is like a blessing and a curse. Because on the one hand, you can spend all of your time obsessing over metrics and being like, oh, how come my video only got 50% watch time? Like, why does the average person only watch half of my video? But then the flip side is, it does let you consider like what's more popular and what topics are resonating with people. If you're chasing views, which I don't recommend, it's not a healthy thing, the analytics are very helpful in that way. But I guess to answer the question, because I'm not sure I have yet, I don't balance being entertaining. I balance being honest and reliable. Like I do my best to make sure that when people see what I say, I can back up what I say, and I'm being kind always. And never, if I can help it, never on purpose being patronizing.
I love that. I love teasing out some of what you're saying, both of you, I think, about being who you are as a person and sort of how you represent that. And I'd love to do just one more question before we go to breakout rooms, drawing on Rhonda's question in the chat about what is the relationship between being on YouTube and your channel and your professional life as a librarian, as an educator, as the roles that you're taking on professionally. How do those two things work together? And whoever wants to go first this time.
So I have it somewhat easier. I work as an auxiliary librarian, which means, like, apparently it's a super rare thing everywhere except for British Columbia. The idea is it's like being an on-call librarian, but instead of getting shifts the same day, you get shifts up to 6 weeks in advance. And so I can balance how many shifts I take to make sure that I have free time to do other things that I care about, which as someone with ADHD is very important, because trying to get me to focus on anything for 7.5 hours is not going to happen. And so that's the big way. But that's also, the pandemic changed everything, right? And so even being able to focus on YouTube is much, much harder now. Yeah. But that's how I get the balance. And then I do contract work for some nonprofits on the side.
So I have kind of the dream job well, when I was a middle school librarian, it was like the dream job. I got to hang out with students all day and teach digital literacy and co-teach and talk to other teachers and be in a library all day, right? And so during lunch, I was always reading or, on my way home listening to my audiobook. And I would keep notes on my phone, either in the notes tool or in Google Keep, on what I was reading or what I was doing or what I was planning and how I wanted to put that into a YouTube video. And I would always tell myself, if I'm getting at least one video a month out there, I'm being true to my blog or my vlog. And then I was doing really well. Like I was doing 2, 3, sometimes one video a week, but 2 or 3 videos a month. And then, the pandemic happened and it really messed up everything for us, right? And I found myself in like this space where, I was reading my textbooks for my doctoral program. I was trying to read books I enjoyed, but it was also like, I can't be the best librarian I can be, and I can't be who I am right now and be the YouTuber that I want to be. And what kind of took a back burner and knowing like what my priorities were was that YouTube had to take a break, right? So my best friend Karina and I, Q the librarian, we started our web show and I thought, okay, we're putting out at least one episode a month and our web show is called Tech It Over. We highlight women in STEM and tech careers. And just kind of talk about nerdy things. And it's also a podcast. You can follow us on Tech It Over or Tech It Over on anywhere you stream a podcast. And that became kind of my outlet for my vlog. And so I'm still getting to be that creative person. I'm still getting to share what I love in a different space. And I was just making sure that I was updating my vlog and my blog and my website and saying, hey guys, I know you're missing my book talks right now and my book reviews. This is what's going on. Like I'm very transparent with my audience because I feel like they're not an audience, right? I'm not an Instagram influencer. They're my friends. This is my community. And so being very transparent and saying that this is what's going on. Like pandemic is hard. Pandemic life is hard. I have major anxiety. So making sure that taking care of myself means that taking a break from this, that's what's going on. And what I've learned through that experience is that not only are librarians amazing, but they are so giving and understanding. And even the kids who watch my channel would say, I totally get it. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for letting us know what's going on with you. I hope you're doing well. Like even small things like that makes such a big difference. But it has been so cool to see how my own personal growth has changed because of this. And I feel like because of my vlog and my YouTube channel, I've gotten these really cool positions that I have now, because I can say, hey, this is what I do on the side. how can we use what I know from YouTube and from, making vlogs and help teachers make vlogs? And that is what I saw so helpful to teachers during this pandemic, because I was able to share my love of vlogging and help them still be great teachers for their students. I hope that answered the question in a really long-winded way.
Oh yeah, those are both beautiful answers. I'm so inspired by both of you. So we're going to switch gears a little bit right now and head into breakout rooms. Renee will start getting that set up. We'll take 10 minutes. And I think this piece of the conversation sets us up very well for you all to reflect a little bit more on what are the opportunities and challenges that we see for librarians on YouTube, and what are other questions that you want to make sure that we ask our panelists. So if you two are both willing, we'd love to get you into those breakout rooms as well. I will put these reflection questions in the chat.
Julia, I think it's really cool that we're going into breakout rooms now, because that gives everybody who's participating a chance to actually like interact with a YouTuber and ask those complicated and difficult questions. I also think it's really a great opportunity to I drill down into this idea that there have been many benefits to being a YouTuber, and there have been many not great things about it too. So that opportunities and challenges is a really great way to share with us your experience. And of course, there are folks in the room who are themselves YouTubers, and so this is obviously an open conversation for everybody who's in the breakout room. Julia, if it's okay with you, you're a YouTuber. I'm putting you in room 1.
Okay.
Peter, I'm putting you in room 2. And Stephanie, I'm putting you in room 3. We're just going to take about, what do you think, Julia? How much time?
I think we can still do 8 to 10 minutes.
Okay, perfect. We'll see you guys back in the big room in about 10 minutes. Rooms are open. Make a new friend. This is networking, you guys. Enjoy it.
I'm sorry, I just couldn't figure out how to join.
Oh, here you go. I'm going to put you in. See if you get a little pop-up that says, oh, you did. Good.
Looks like we may have been ahead of the curve.
That's what I was just thinking. So while we wait, I saw a question from Rhonda about if anyone has a YouTube channel at their university for undergrads. Does anybody have any resources for her?
Stephanie, how many hours does it take to create one of your videos on average?
Probably about an hour or two a week, depending on, what I'm creating. Our web show, Karina and I's web show, we record on, if we don't go live, which would be a Wednesday evening, we record on Sundays, and we make sure our video is between 30 and 45 minutes. And that way, if we go over time, there'll be an hour. But okay, she said they're coming back together in a minute. But yeah, they usually take about an hour, just because I don't do a lot of fancy editing because I'm still learning about it. If I did, I would imagine it would take longer, but yeah, it just depends on the length of the video and then just putting in my cover. But
are you learning by doing, or did you like?
Yeah, learning by doing, watching a lot of YouTube videos and how other people do it.
Yeah. Do you have a special camera?
I do. Hold on, I'm answering Rhonda's question. I have actually 3 cameras. So I bought a MacBook Pro just specifically for the camera. And then I have 2 external cameras that I got just off Amazon. They're like $25 or $30 web cams. One of them is an HD, like super pixelated camera. And that one is very responsive to light. So that one I use like if I'm recording with lights off. And then I have another one that I was using when I was making a lot of videos for teachers. And that one is not as, not pixelated, but it doesn't have as great quality, but it's not so responsive to light. So it kind of just depends what I'm doing.
Sorry, one last question. Do you have a script, or is it all pretty much like just an outline and you're off the cuff?
Yep, just an outline and I just kind of wing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we have more folks coming back from breakout rooms. These conversations just go by so fast.
Looks like everybody's back now. Julia, I wonder what happened in each of the rooms, and were some insights that emerged from those conversations. Can we hear at least one or maybe 2 people from room 1, room 2, and room 3 kind of share an idea that was most meaningful to you? Who wants to go first? Just unmute your microphone, please. Or I'll call on you. Colleen!
I missed the question, I think. I just appeared in this room.
What happened in the chat room that was interesting? What was an idea that you shared or that came up in your chat room that was meaningful to you?
Oh, well, we were talking about how it can be such an effective tool to have a personality standing out and speaking for your library, but some of the tensions and challenges that can make with branding and inside the institution when you have someone speaking from their own voice on behalf of the institution.
Boy, that is a huge and interesting point. Claire, what was an interesting idea that came up in the small group discussion from your point of view?
Well, this was fascinating for me, coming from a public library, to understand the complications for academics and intellectual property. It never even occurred to me. You would go in and create a program, what we call a program, and then who owns it? And if you're going to travel between institutions or, leave one job, does it come with you or does it belong to the institution? It never even occurred to me that this was an issue. It's fascinating. It's just so deep.
Wow, really cool. Diane, what was an idea that came up in the small group discussion that was meaningful to you?
We've hit on a lot of what we talked about. And I those are the two that stuck out with me, the intellectual property challenges, being able to have a personality while still representing an institution. That's one thing I kind of noticed with our panel speakers is that a lot of this is their personal blogs and their personal vlogs. So kind of that, how do you do work that represents a larger voice while still keeping your own voice?
Really great. Thank you so much for sharing. Stephanie, what was a topic that came up in your small group conversation that was interesting to you?
We talked about the opportunities, the challenges. We had some really great questions coming up that I got complimented on my eyebrows, and I've been texting my friends about that. It's so cool that in 2020 or 2021 we're complimenting eyebrows. We talked about how we sorry, I'm blanking now. I got asked about my tech that I use, how long it takes to make the videos. We talked about shared resources, so how some librarians have made their tools or their libraries digital because of the pandemic, and thinking about how we talk to people before and after, or if there ever is going to be an after the pandemic.
Thanks for sharing. Peter, what was a topic of interest in your small group discussion that was most meaningful, important, or provocative?
Yeah, well, incidentally, most of the people who've been called were in that group. But Claire brought up an excellent point that hasn't been talked about too much, and that is around public libraries and how her library at least has really embraced, or at least had really embraced the idea of doing digital programming online. And so that kind of led into a discussion of like, well, how long does it take to make video content? And on top of that, how feasible is it to do video content when we're also serving patrons? Because it's really, really hard, depending on where you're at, to balance that. If your library, like if the person who's doing the video still has a public service role or mostly public service role and doesn't really have any time in the back of the house to get the actual planning done. And this ties in with something that Colleen had talked about, how like accessing, because Colleen hasn't mentioned it to everyone, but she did an excellent, oh, maybe she did. She did an excellent channel with University of Iowa Special Collections. But she said that one of the challenges she had was like getting access to the spaces when people aren't around. And like she wouldn't be able to go into the archives or into the special collections because the building would be closed and locked. And I think that that's an important thing to keep in mind.
Absolutely fascinating. Julia, I want you to have the last word, but I also want to remind folks that this is part of a three-part series. We knew we couldn't tackle the challenges of librarianship, YouTube librarianship. We couldn't do it in one session. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've got planned for us for next week?
Yes. So 2 weeks from today, same time, on June 2nd, you will have Trevor and I talking about how we're just getting started, and we're going to do a little watch and react to one of our recent videos, and then talk a little bit about our process and things we've learned, are learning, and questions we've had so far. Hopefully a chance to talk more about some of these challenges in terms of time and resources and motivation and how to share who you are and all these questions that we've been talking about today. And then,
because you're a librarian, you've also developed those resources. You want to talk a little bit about those?
Yes, but before I get there, I also just want to quick mention that we're also going to get to hear more from Claire and her team later in June about how they are building community and sharing things on YouTube, especially over the past year for the pandemic. So lots more to come there. And a lot of the folks we've mentioned today are linked on this resource page, as well as some others that would be great to check out. Wide variety in what people are doing as librarians and library workers on YouTube. And then, of course, there's a suggested reading list at the bottom with some additional resources from Peter as well.
Wow. Okay, I just want to give everybody who participated a big round of applause. Stephanie, Pete, Julia, thank you so much for joining us. I'm Renee Hobbs. Thanks for being part of the Media Education Lab community. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye now.
Thank you.